Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick O'Toole, and I am the co-owner of Solar Group, and we are proud publishers of Kitchen and Bath Design News, Qualified Remodeler, and Residential Design magazines. Today's webcast is the second in a series of 4 that we're doing in partnership with Houzz.com. Today's presentation is Client Expectations Today, the changing needs and desires of today's homeowners who are renovating and remodeling. Houzz VP of Industry Marketing, Liza Hausman, is the chief presenter. She is going to present the latest research from Houzz on customer expectations. In addition, Chris Landis, AIA, from Washington, D.C., and also the design columnist for Qualified Remodeler, will present the latest remodeling trends from his perspective as the head of a design build remodeling firm for many, many years. I want to start today's presentation with a quick run through about our speakers. And before I do that, I want to let everyone know the course of events for today. Our first speaker is Liza, our second speaker is Chris, and afterward, there will be a time for questions and answers. If you would like to ask a question, all you have to do is go to the Q&A button and add your question. At the end of the program, we'll go through those questions, as many as we can get to as possible, with a hard stop at 60 minutes or 1 hour from now. So we'll get as many questions as we can in. We're really excited for this great new information from Houzz and from Chris Landis. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker. Liza Hausman is Vice President of Industry Marketing at Houzz, which is an innovative residential remodeling and design platform I'm sure that all of you know. Ms. Hausman has experience spanning advertising, consulting, marketing, social strategy, and with some of the biggest brands in the country, and a lot of innovative startups as well. Over the last 7 years, she's worked with interior designers, architects, contractors, and landscape designers to remodel and decorate nearly every inch of her home in Palo Alto, California. So that is Liza, our first speaker. Our second speaker is Chris Landis. He is CEO of Landis Architects and Builders in Washington, D.C. Chris is an architect licensed in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, and New York, and is a member of the American Institute of Architects. After graduating with an MA in architecture from Columbia University, he worked with Fortune 500 companies. He served 2 terms on DC's Historic Preservation Review Board, and he is a past president of the DC chapter of the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. So we've got a really well-qualified group of speakers. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Liza Hausman. Liza, take it away.
Thanks, Patrick. Good group today. Really welcome to everybody. Hello from my home office to wherever you are working today. Hopefully you're getting some better weather and some summer weather, but excited to share some new research. I know that in a few months, we're going to be sharing our house and home research, which is more of the design side of what homeowners want. And I hope you'll attend then. But what we're covering today is some new research that's much more kind of about the process and the pain points that homeowners are feeling. Our industry is really lucky, as you're all probably feeling. We're booming right now. You're likely turning down work or pushing start dates far into the future for new projects. And while that's great for you and for all of us, our brand new research really shows that homeowners care about some surprising things and are often disappointed or frustrated with several aspects of kind of the whole virtuous cycle of finding and then working with the designers and remodelers that they hire. So in this webinar, we're going to kind of talk about what that research found and some of the things that really may help all of us to continue to thrive, not just during this boom, but for years to come. So just wanted to touch quickly on our Q2 Houzz renovation barometer. It tracks residential renovation market expectations, project backlogs, and recent activity. And as you can see here, this is the recent business activity indicator related to project inquiries and new committed projects. And you can see it increased significantly to 73 in Q1 compared to 62 in Q4. Basically, this is on a scale of 0 to 100, and index values over 50 basically show that a greater proportion of firms reported quarter-over-quarter increases versus decreases. And so a big jump in firms reporting an increase in recent business activity. Similarly, on the expected business activity front, related to project inquiries and new committed projects, that increased to 73 in Q2 compared to 70 in Q1. So expectations continue to grow. And I have some notes there. This is the construction sector. The little blue box talks about the architectural and design sector, and that also increased significantly to 74 in Q2 versus 68 in Q1. And finally, the backlog indicator. So again, you probably feel all of this, but the backlog indicator for construction firms increased to 9.3 weeks nationally at the start of Q2, up from 7.4. For architecture and design firms, it increased to 8.4 weeks. So we're really seeing significant backlogs and growing backlogs among both construction, architecture, and design firms across the country. What are some of the key factors contributing to this? I think there are things you're all familiar with, from the pandemic to elections to the economy, changing tariffs and interest rates, and of course the sort of evergreen factors that we've been seeing for some time, product and material availability and prices, which have been obviously exacerbated by COVID, the labor shortages, natural disasters, and weather. And we're kind of seeing this reflected in how firms are seeing changes in labor availability and costs. So you can see across the board, no matter what the type of firm, and these are all the segments that we look at, whether it's architecture, construction, or landscaping, everyone's expecting significant worsening changes in both labor costs and labor availability. As well as kind of worsening situation for both product and material availability and product and material costs. So why do I raise all of this before we get into the research? Well, it means that managing homeowner expectations and keeping them updated on delays, everything from these project backlogs to material shortages, has really become a mission critical part of the process, and something that not only you feel, but they feel. So our homeowner research looked at the entire virtuous, cycle that homeowners go through, from finding a pro, right? How do they find companies to consider, to vetting it? So, once they have a list of companies they could contact, how do they decide who they want to contact? Hiring, what goes into the hiring decision? Quite a bit on the project itself. We actually asked homeowners what would have made their project better, and recommending. So, right, all of this feeds that very important referral process that obviously everybody wants to ensure happens, that recommendation comes at the end of the process. So who did we ask? Well, we surveyed more than 900 homeowners who were either planning, in the middle of, or who completed a renovation in the last 2 years. You can see 50% of those actually completed. So let's start pre-project. I think one of the key takeaways from our research of the pre-project activity is that online credibility really matters. It really matters to homeowners, and it really matters no matter where your new project leads are coming from. And why is that? Well, it actually may surprise you to learn that more than 3 in every 5 homeowners who rely on recommendations for personal sources. So those are referrals. They didn't necessarily find you originally online. It was a recommendation from a friend or a family member. Those same people still report that a pro's online presence is a very important factor in their decision to contact and interview. So just because somebody gets a recommendation doesn't mean that they're actually going to reach out and contact you. They're actually doing quite a lot to vet online. And I'm sure all of you are very sophisticated in your thinking about the content, on your website and your house profile, your other online touch points or social media. But I think the key here and the key learning is to think about them not just as a way to be discovered, but as actually a place where homeowners are validating the other input they may have had from you from another channel. So it's where is that recommendation being reinforced? So once you've made that short list, they're going to contact you, they're contacting you. What's important to homeowners when making hiring decisions these days? So online presence along with collaboration tools actually was the #1 thing that homeowners reported on in this survey. So for years I've been, and I think Chris probably saw me talk about this years and years ago, but I've been talking about this as nice, quote unquote, nice stalking. And you've all done it when hiring a new employee or reading about a product you're interested in, right? You want as much information as possible before you actually make contact. And of course, we all know homeowners can spend a year plus planning and saving for a project before moving forward. So, they're building up their list of ideas and their list of potential professionals to contact. So when they're ready to reach out, they feel armed with information. And then I think maybe the surprising part is on the collaboration tools. Curious if any of you expected that to be part of the hiring decision. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of why that's such an important signal to homeowners about what they're going to expect in the rest of the project experience. Sometimes it helps to think about your online presence like a digital storefront, and whether your display window really encourages people to want to learn more, right? Is it welcoming? Do people want to come inside based on what they see? And then once they come in, can they easily find the information that they need? And again, most of you are pretty darn sophisticated about this, but it still surprises me, and I often find a lot of websites out there that don't necessarily put themselves in the client's shoes. You all know what questions you get most often when you finally have that first call or meeting with a potential client. And so it's really important to make sure you're answering those same questions online and answering what they want to hear and not necessarily, the awards or the things that you are most proud of. I think, getting your head around why this should matter, especially when we're all really busy. And it's a lot of what I hear from professionals these days. Everyone is so busy that, sometimes some of the fundamentals fall through the cracks, and it's kind of easy to say, well, it doesn't matter, I'm so busy. But you really don't know, what you're not hearing. You could be missing out on so much that you do care about. So, if those references or referrals aren't reaching out, you could be missing, better clients in terms of project quality, nicer people, bigger budgets, or just more choice of projects and better pipeline. And I think that's kind of the bigger issue, which is, you're busy now, but eventually things will slow down. And how do you make sure that everything really is set and ready for if and when things do? So one thing that we have done to try to help on this front is to try to help more professionals understand how they're doing in terms of online impact, right? Is your online presence helping convince the clients referred to you, or even those who found you organically or through advertising or other means, to actually pick up the phone and reach out? And that's exactly the right question to ask. So to help the pro community find opportunities to make a bigger impact, we actually developed something called the Online Impact Score. So let's talk about what that is briefly. Essentially, we created a score that takes into account your website and your house profile. The key factors that go into the Online Impact Score on the website front are, is it error-free? Is it secure? How mobile-friendly is it? Is the page load time fast? Does it have an easy to access contact form? Is it built on kind of a leading site platform and technology that's not going out of date? Do you have video and other content that homeowners expect more and more often these days? And then of course, for your house profile, the reviews on Houzz that you have and kind of the overall impact there. We actually also provide score benchmarks. We actually calculated this impact score for nearly 1 million pros around the world and 500,000 in North America. The score initially is only for pros that do have a house profile and have linked their own proprietary website. The scores are out of a total of 100, and the averages that we typically found range from 40 to 57. Interior designer and kitchen and bath designer categories had the highest average scores at 57. So for most professionals, there's still quite a bit of room for improvement. And to get your online impact score, you can just log into your house profile, go to the insights section to see it. I do want to say that the online impact score is only visible to you. It's not used by Houzz in any way to affect your visibility. It's really designed just to help you identify opportunities for improvements. And you can always schedule a consultation and talk to somebody if you want to find out a little bit more about the gaps. And again, most of you are pretty sophisticated about this, but a lot is changing in terms of the types of information and the types of designs on websites these days. And so it's really important to make sure that all of the information that you want to make available is there and easy to access. So what else did we learn from our homeowner research? Well, our research also looked at the factors that had the biggest impact on hiring decisions, and also the biggest challenges homeowners face when working with design and construction pros throughout the process. So I mentioned earlier that collaboration tools impact hiring decisions. Here are some of the other key factors: communication and organization skills, pricing in a bid that's easy to understand, as well as the speed of receiving a proposal or estimate. And all of these signal to homeowners what it's going to be like to work with you. So it's not necessarily just the thing itself, but also an indication of what the whole experience is going to be like. And we found that these early interactions really set the tone and precedent in homeowners' minds for the experience. What else did they mention? Some of it's pretty pragmatic, availability or experience with similar projects. And personality also ranks surprisingly high. So that kind of first contact that a homeowner has, the first person they speak to, that also actually made quite an impression on homeowners and their comfort level and their decision to move forward. So for this sort of last section of the virtuous cycle of working with and then recommending pros, we asked homeowners in our survey who were either in the midst of or had completed a major renovation project, what's the one thing that would have most improved their experience? And the factors that impact, whether they recommend pros to others and continue this cycle and this circle for you. So we're going to walk through some of the verbatim responses they gave us, and just some thoughts with them. And it'll be interesting to hear from you after this what you're seeing. So communication was absolutely the number one top response for what would have most improved their project. People said things like, I feel a disconnect from my project and not enough communication. It would have helped to have a weekly check-in and actually a video walkthrough of my project. And also would have been helpful to have a single point of contact. And this came up quite a bit, folks saying I received conflicting information from different team members, and sometimes they did not know what the other team member was doing. So, kind of along that front, questions to ask yourself, right? Is there one source of truth for all your client communications, a place where everyone can go back and see, who's sending information, what information was shared, what decisions were made? And also, again, I'm sure many of you provide a client dashboard so that clients can get information at their convenience. Being able to get information on demand was something that came up quite a bit among homeowners. And it really came up as a form of empowerment, right? It gives them a sense of control. And of course, it can also reduce some of the communication burden on you and your busy teams, especially right now. The other thing that came up on the communication front was really scheduling, kind of the overall timing of specific activities and things that cause delays. So homeowners said things like better communication regarding delays, understanding the source of the delay. So, hey, it's, this is a delayed because of city permitting issues. Having some sort of estimated timing and overview would have been very helpful, better communication on timeline and completion date, and timely communications on scheduling and when workers would be at our home. And of course, all this has been exacerbated by the delays that we've seen with COVID, the challenges with bringing people on site, and just the overall discomfort level that homeowners have had in the last year and a half, along with kind of a greater urgency around making these changes to their homes. So lots of tension and lots of pressure. So again, the scheduling was one of the biggest pain points within communication, and people were pragmatic. So I think, of course, nobody wants delays, but they understand that delays happen. But keeping them happy really means providing proactive communications about changes and really easier visibility into that overall schedule. So having a Gantt chart and a calendar view with key milestones was really at the top of homeowners' wish lists. And again, if this is something that you provide, this is something that you absolutely should be marketing to your potential clients. Another aspect of communication that homeowners brought up was an understanding of dependencies and knowing where they themselves can be a blocker for work. So that could be everything from making selections or simply providing approvals. Often homeowners felt unclear about their particular role and where they fit into the process. Visualizations came up quite a bit. What did people ask for? Well, CAD instead of hand-drawn drawings, improved graphics for visual presentations, some way to have a visual of the finished product, and to do all of that to make sure that it's something, that they actually want. And all of this really is tied to confidence. People said, I want to feel more confident about the process and outcome. And of course, as you all know, technology is getting better and better and easier to use. This is actually the Houzz Pro 3D floor planner. Of course, it's not chief architect, but I think it's representative of how it's now a lot easier and cheaper for more team members to be able to collaborate with clients on design ideas, to successfully upsell them on features and layouts, and to generally build a greater level of confidence and credibility, and help them get over that discomfort of not being able to visualize the end result. Another area that came up as a big pain point were getting the right level of estimates and proposals, getting all the details written into the quote, more collaboration and communication along with clear and more accurate estimates. Someone wrote that they would have liked the designer to go through the recommended list of materials line by line and confirm the finishes, and really making sure that every aspect of the scope of work is in the final contract. Again, something you guys probably cover, but it's definitely not consistent in the industry. We saw in the responses that estimate details along with turnaround time are important, and obviously those can be in odds. You want to provide that very detailed estimate, but don't always have all the information, especially if somebody wants a general sense of what something's going to cost. And then overall financial clarity. I think some folks in the industry balk at the idea of financial transparency. Of course, homeowners don't need to know your profit margins or what you pay your employees, but they're often suffering from what I call a lack of clarity. And this is really an opportunity for savvy businesses like you to, again, put it into your sales process. So homeowners asked for more financial transparency before, during, and after the project, more transparency in the budget, an easier way to see the budget and time frame as they change, communications with the exact cost and changes, and a realistic and complete budget. Right, the finances have been stressful. This is a real pain point for most clients. And it's an incredible sales opportunity to be a good communicator about the financial aspect of the project, and to put it into your sales process to be proactive and help make them comfortable. Here somebody said, I really didn't understand the overall financial commitment, and at times felt like I didn't want to bother my designer, although she was quite nice. And I think that last quote I like, just because it shows often just the level of discomfort in talking about financials that homeowners have, and so you can often be surprised to find them unhappy when they're not voicing their issues. Obviously, lots of great ways to help set expectations. Providing a payment schedule as part of the estimate can definitely help. One of the things that we found are that e-signatures are as popular with homeowners as they are with the professional community. I think it provides a sense of security on both sides, and kind of having something tangible to record what's happening. And finally, payment ease. So it was kind of surprising how many folks, who did major projects asked to take credit cards or to be able to pay by ACH or bank transfer to get away from paper checks. It's just, as they know, a great area of convenience. And homeowners told us that, if they want the option to pay by credit card, even for some part of the project, they understand that there may be a fee. So for them, sometimes convenience is worth the cost, or the credit card points are worth the premium. And so being able to pass that on is something that they're open to having an upfront discussion about. So at the end of the day, kind of coming around to this full circle, it's really, about finding that win-win for you and your client. When they're happy, right? And there's a huge opportunity to sell the value that you provide. So when people were happy with their experience, what did they say? Very happy. The issues that occurred were unexpected. Having a professional to help manage through unexpected issues was invaluable. They see the value. We hired the wrong person first, and he wasted 6 months and thousands of dollars of our time and money. Our second GC is amazing and moving along very smoothly and transparently. Absolutely nothing. I'm totally pleased. She listened to my wants and needs and produced. And then I love this last one, going with higher end contractors, even for lower end jobs. So, I think telling new prospective customers about the if onlys of past customers or folks that went a different direction can actually be a great sales tool. And of course, when they win, you win. Don't let this be you. Obviously, being overwhelmed with stressed out clients is no fun for anybody. One of the other comments that we got was asking for professionals to be more tech savvy. So, people do want tools. They're expecting more things to be online and more information to be available. What do they want, right? A centralized online track communication really can help provide that great customer experience, and it's a team safety net. Proactively communicating the impact of changes on project schedules, top of homeowners lists, putting visual tools to work to close business and upsell clients really pays off on the client front too, to build their confidence. Making financial clarity a fundamental part of the operation at every stage. Offering clients the convenience of online payments. And of course, practicing empathy, because these are stressful, difficult times. And you guys are probably all doing this, but it may be worth checking in with your team and reminding them just how overwhelming the process can be from the homeowner perspective. We can often all sometimes forget about just how difficult it is to be that first time person building a new house or renovating a house, how many decisions have to be made, and just how stressful the whole process is. So I know we're going to save Q&A for the end. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Patrick for part 2.
Well, thank you so much, Liza. That was terrific information. And again, so many thousands of pros contributing their viewpoints on how best to manage customer expectations, client expectations. A lot of great suggestions there. I'm going to put a poll question up before we bring Chris Landis up to tell us a little bit about what he's seeing in the market. I'm going to launch that poll right now. I'd love it if folks could answer this question. Select one. What are the biggest challenges with managing clients today? And we're going to leave that open for just a few minutes, not minutes, a few more seconds, and let everybody chime in for a moment. And Chris, are you ready? We're gonna talk a little bit about what you're seeing in Washington, D.C. and basically how you manage your process a little bit at Landis Construction. You guys have been around for a long time. So we'll get those slides up for you in just a moment. We're going to leave this poll question up.
I'm definitely ready.
What's that?
I'm ready.
Good. Glad
Bring
to
it
hear
on.
it. All right. So not surprisingly, managing decision making or changes. Wow. How often does that happen where a client is dragging their feet on making final selections? Every day, it seems. So I'm going to end that poll right now. Thank you for your responses. And I'm going to share my screen, and then Chris is going to, it's going to be Chris's slides, and Chris is going to talk a little bit about what's happening at Landis Construction.
Well, I'll just jump in while there's a silence here. Liza, all that information is great. It just reinforces everything that we're seeing in the marketplace. And you know, really with customers, it's the three-legged stool. I always say they want great quality, they want on-time delivery, and they want it on budget. And you know, sometimes they want it super fast, and I tell them they're going to have to kick out one of the legs on that stool. Anyway, I think the biggest thing about customer satisfaction is certainly in the sales process is kind of unique, but just ask them what they're looking for in a firm and then sit back and wait for the answer. Because very often people will really tell you what they're looking for. And obviously they're looking at other firms. And then your whole presentation can be based around what they're looking for. So you're hitting their pain points, they're telling you what their pain points are, and then you're responding. And it's not a canned spiel. It's not, you never know what people are, what's driving them. So if you ask them, hopefully they'll tell you. Anyway, we can go to the next slide. We are definitely seeing the demand that everybody's talking about. I would even say that it's stronger than pre-crash 2008 for us anyway, at least the leads are. You can see we've got 3 years worth of volume here in terms of just leads, and that's to date. So obviously last year at this time, we were just, well, the first month, March was, you know, that's when the phone stopped ringing, and then they stage stopped ringing for about 2 months, and then they started to pick up again. Here, they've just been consistently strong all across the board. And there's the mix of products, mix of marketing activities that generate a lot of this activity for us anyway. And I'm not going to get into a whole marketing thing because that's not what this is about. We can go to the next slide. So I think, you know, all the things that Liza talked about, you know, CRM type of tools, which help with communication, but they aren't a panacea. Obviously, if you're not a good communicator and you don't have a good command of the language and you're not empathetic or sympathetic, you know, software is not going to necessarily help you. You've got to reach out and touch people. It's so interesting. I mean, one of the questions you can ask clients is, how do you like to be communicated with? There are people that just like texting. There are people that just like email. And it's very interesting. I think the millennials are certainly different than the boomers and the other groups. So really, you need to find out how people like to communicate. It can be all over the place. Well, you got to go back to that other slide there. I still hadn't finished some of that stuff there, Patrick. So that's all the tools for 3D, obviously, I think many of you know about. Those are really great communication tools. And I mean, I go back, unfortunately, to the T-square and the triangle days, and then computers, and then CAD, which is 2D, and now finally 3D and 3D presentations. And obviously with COVID and Zoom, and we can do all this stuff right on the screen and put finishes up there and everything. So it's a really powerful tool. And I think a lot of people have gotten really used to it really quickly, and not having to leave their house and come to an office and chase around town and deal with traffic and congestion has really been huge. And I'm not sure how much of that we're going to go back to. We still have to go out and measure houses and things like that, and there are tools for that too. 3D cameras and all that kind of great stuff that you can upload to your CRM and things like that. So there's so many tools in that sense. And the time-lapse photography that you can leave the cameras on your job and get the time-lapse stuff for your marketing. All that kind of stuff is going on. And obviously the Matterport stuff and the 3D stuff where you walk through it. You can walk through your 3D models and you can show people in the selling of things, the virtual model as you walk through it, and then you can show the finished projects as you walk through it. So gain a lot of credibility that way. Ready for the next slide. And so really the trends and things that we're seeing, I mean, with COVID, obviously a lot of people have moved indoors and they've been cooped up for a long time. So we're seeing a lot of people want a lot of light. They want big windows. They want connections to their backyards. They want connections to nature as much as they can. If they have it, they want the sliding doors. They want the nano wall type things. I think there's another picture of that coming up. They want the decks, the outdoor spaces. We're going to see more of that. We've seen a lot of it. A very strong demand. I think we can go to the next slide here. There's the nano wall kind of thing. So a lot of that. We can go to the next slide. I think one thing that we're really seeing an uptick in, and I don't know, is these sort of structured pergolas that have a lot of features built into them. So they have a louvered system on the top that closes, so the roof can actually close. So when it rains, and actually the drains are built into the columns, they have automatic screens that come up and down. So a lot of people early COVID were entertaining outside because that was still doable even if you wore your masks, but you couldn't go inside. So they wanted these kinds of spaces. It's back like when there was the Zika virus, maybe only on the East Coast, and they wanted screen porches and things like that. So we've seen a lot of demand for this, and this is an example of one that's about ready to start being built. You can see a photograph there, obviously the amenities of the fire pit and all those things. More outdoor spaces. You can go to the next one, Patrick. Outdoor spaces, a lot of entertaining outdoors with the gardens. In this case, there's a screened porch right there. You can see that. Fountains, fire pits, outdoor lighting, a lot of that stuff. And with the smart homes, a lot of this stuff can be automatic. You know, you can work the world with your iPhone and an app, right? You can turn your fountain on and off. You can turn your lights on and off. You can do everything that way. I think we can go to the next one. So yeah, outdoor kitchens, outdoor eating areas, fire pits, a lot of that stuff. So people are at home and they're not traveling. They haven't gone on vacation for over a year. So they want to go to their backyard and have a vacation. They can also feel comfortable entertaining their family and things like that. So we're seeing a lot of demand for that. And if they don't have the space, they're putting this on a deck. They're putting this on the roof. I think we have another slide there. We're in a denser urban area. One of the things with denser urban areas is obviously there's no new land. So we're seeing demands. And then also with the low interest rates, which is driving real estate prices through the roof, people are deciding to stay. I always tell people that just selling your house costs you 14% of your house's value just to move laterally. I mean, that's with the sales tax and the broker's 6% and costs of moving and fixing up and always changing where you want to go. So that's a significant amount of money. So a lot of people in row houses and things like townhouses, they want to add a floor. Here's a front and a back example, but huge amount of requests for those kinds of things. And then roof decks as well. So we can go into the next slide. Entertaining spaces. If you don't have if you've got a postage size backyard or you're parking in your backyard or whatever, clearly backyards, sometimes an addition on top that could have an exercise room with the back area, things like that. Seeing a lot of demand for that stuff. And the next one. In our city, the zoning has changed and ADUs are allowed, so that's accessory dwelling units. And so cities, obviously a lot of cities are getting maxed out for space. So this enables more density. It enables you to turn your garage into a living unit, things like that. So that's not a COVID thing, that was pre-COVID, but the zoning laws have changed here. And so there's a fair amount of demand for that. Clearly it's like a little house, and it does have a significant cost, but if you have those costs and put them on your website, people will find it and they'll be able to digest it, and then they'll call you and say, that's what I want. and you don't have to sell them. Okay, let's go to the next one. So these are some of the technological trends that we're seeing out there. More products connected to Wi-Fi clearly, and apps and things like that. So really part of our discussion once we get into a house is, do you want Sonos? If you don't know about it, we explain how that works, smart appliances, Nest and Ring doorbells, security systems, all of that stuff can work off your iPhone or your phone these days. Charging stations, obviously, and Wi-Fi points on different floors. And this extends to the outdoors. You can have speakers outdoors. You can have lots of functionality outdoors with these wireless systems. You can drive into your garage with a key fob and turn on the lights to the garage and light the way into your home. So there's a lot of these amenities that you need to talk to your clients about. A lot of them they don't really know about or understand. A lot of people staying at home want more interior design services. We're design build. We don't really get into fabrics and things like that, but people are wanting that. And then obviously air quality is a big thing. Could go down that rabbit hole. There's a lot of products out there. There have been, but there are even more now. So the filters, the electrostatic stuff, the HEPA stuff. So a lot of people were interested in that. So I don't know what my time is like, Patrick, but that's what we're seeing here.
Fantastic, Chris Landis. I mean, just for all of you out there to get a little bit of a snapshot into what Landis architects and builders are seeing in Washington, D.C., a firm that's been out there for 30 years, great reputation, something we want to talk about in our Q&A section here. Some of you have asked questions in our chat function, totally awesome. We'll get to those. We also have a Q&A area, and I'd like to direct your attention to that as well. So if you want to ask a question there, we're happy to get to those. I want to start with just a couple quick notes from my perspective here on what Liza had talked about, and then circle back with Chris. Obviously a lot of the early part of your presentation, Liza, was on online reputation. A Qualified Remodeler, which is one of the brands that's sponsoring this webcast, we do a customer satisfaction report every year with Guild Quality. And we call that the customer satisfaction report, and it's up on our website. Here's the pain points that we continually see year after year from clients who are talking about their experiences in remodeling projects, very similar to what we talked about today. Communication is number one. Trust is right up there with communication. Being on time, keeping schedule, avoiding long gaps in that work progress, cleanliness, keeping the job site clean, really important. And oddly, price is way down the list of things that are on the pain points for keeping that customer happy and keeping them ready to offer you repeat and referral business. So I direct your attention to the qualifiedremodeler.com website to look for that customer satisfaction report. So with that in mind, Chris, I want to throw a question to you and your team there. You got a big group, maybe about 30 employees, and you've got a lot of people out in the field every day. Certainly you see reputation management issues come up all the time. What is your process for managing online reviews, and particularly how do you handle the negative ones?
Well, I mean, I think you just want to have a great process and treat your client's home like it's yours and have a good, honest reputation. And then you shouldn't have to do too much online reputation management. Clearly there are situations that we've all run into where I've had people who called and didn't actually get somebody and then flamed us online. I mean, it's kind of, they've never even had an experience with us and we had no record of them ever calling. So those kinds of things can happen. And, I think a lot of times it's better to say nothing, I guess. Sometimes you can just explain your side of the story and leave it at that.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, and there's a ton of intricacies to that process. Liza, you mentioned a few of those and some of the tools that you have at Houzz. Maybe you could just touch on that online reputation piece and what your advice is to the group out there.
Yeah, I guess for this research, it's less about your online reputation and more about, because I think, everybody's been managing their online reviews and doing all of that online. I think what folks don't necessarily think about is what other information to provide and how to provide it online, right? Because people are out there looking, and yes, they're looking at your reviews, but they're doing a lot of information gathering before they ever reach out to you. And so it's beyond just reputation. It is really just, how are you building that storefront so that when someone's coming to look at what you have to offer, they're seeing all the things they need to see to want to reach out and make contact. So yes, reviews and managing your reviews is one piece of that. But are you speaking about your process? So as Chris mentioned, right, a lot of it is, and the reviews are based on what was the experience they had with you throughout that project, and what tools do you provide, or as Chris said, when you first speak to a potential client and you say, what are you looking for, right? You know what questions they ask, right? Everybody out there knows what the burning questions are when you first talk to a client and they want to know, like, how long is this going to take, and what's involved, and what are the difficulties, and you could see from people's comments that they really appreciated when pros have that expertise to provide. So I think it's much more about, how can you be more proactive about providing that type of information online and being upfront about it, rather than waiting for the call to have that discussion? How are you putting it out there? And then how are you making it clear that you're providing these tools, whether it's project management tools or design tools or collaboration tools, right? As we all move to more digital project management systems. And if you're Chris and you have a huge firm and lots of people working on a project, right? Who is the one point of contact, right? So there's all these places for the breakdowns to happen. And are you selling enough of the good ways that you're going to manage that for a client during the project, during that sales process? Don't wait to tell them they're going to have these tools till later, right? This is all the things that being upfront about, whether that's the way you do your estimates and bids, whether that's the way that you're providing them a communication platform, all the things that are going to get them comfortable about working with you.
Thank you, Liza. A very detailed answer there, and certainly a big topic area. One of our readers has asked a question about basically material costs. She references lumber in particular, Chris and Liza. So with these lumber prices changing every 5 days, with delays in appliances and other supply chain issues and price increases on top of it, how do you manage those increasing costs, and what is your process within Landis Construction?
Well, I mean, I think, a lot of this sudden spike in inflation has caught a lot of us off guard. I think initially you just want to have a line in your contract that says, if there's any spike in commodity prices, you're going to inform the client what those are and how they affect their project. We've recently put that in. We also, I mean, one of the maybe difficulties is it depends on how long your funnel is and your backlog. But for us, with the average project taking 6 or 7 months to complete, and your size, you have a relationship with builders, and you've got the deepest discounts you can with the warehouse. Even with all of your suppliers, and also you've been doing business with your suppliers for many years. So you have a relationship and you're making calls to the head of the firm, as opposed to just a salesman if you're having issues. And I think a lot of the suppliers have really, they're trying to protect, obviously, all of their serious businesses that are buying from them. So, but they're putting out notices in advance and they're letting people know what's coming. And that's part of it. Obviously, if there's a significant number of change orders on a job, mostly hopefully client driven, you can start padding those too and claw back some of the overages that you're seeing.
Got it. Can you speak to the changes in timeline when those occur and unexpectedly? is that a clause in the contract? But really, it needs to be about communication, doesn't it? If something is going to be delayed.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you know your cabinets are going to take another 3 weeks, hopefully you've got other things you can do, but you need to let the client know. Absolutely.
Got it. Got it. Liza, any thoughts on the material prices and supply chain issues, and any information from that survey that you've conducted that might shine light on that particular issue?
Well,
And how?
Yeah, there's no, sorry, Patrick, obviously there's no magic fix for what's going on in the supply chain. But I think it is about being clear and setting expectations. So hi to Rhoda, I haven't talked to you in a long time, but to Rhoda Fry, but she was asking about that specifically. The lumber price is good for 5 days. I know that, we've in terms of, for folks that are using Houzz Pro software for building estimates, there's a field specifically, right, for a clause that says this is only good for 5 days. And all the best practices we're recommending is to be very upfront with clients about what's going on in the supply chain these days, whether it's, cabinets or countertops, or all the things that are really causing the most pain right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that. I mean, since our projects tend to be a little larger and longer, we just obviously order appliances and cabinets early on. Normally we wait a month or two after a project, let's say a sizable addition was started. Now we're going to order it right away and just get it into the warehouse and make sure we have that added level of protection. And if the manufacturer is telling us, we're slowing down, obviously the earlier we order it, the more likely we are to have success and keep our schedule.
Got it. Got it. There's a gentleman here who's asking a question about firing bad clients or prospects, and this is a whole seminar. I believe I saw the first seminar on this topic in 2003, where a good remodeler often keeps notes and has a real spidey sense almost about who they want to work with and who they don't. But there's some hard and fast rules. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Chris.
Well, it does happen, unfortunately, and you just have to do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. Just go to them and tell them it's not working out, and just settle up as equitably as you can, and then maybe you wouldn't probably want to refer them to anybody at that stage because you knew that would just damage their business. But just do it as gracefully as you can. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. Liza, any thoughts on that, anecdotally, what you're hearing out there?
I hear it constantly, I guess, is the one thing I'll just add to that, is it is a problem for everybody and in every part of the profession of, when do you do that? Do you just try to finish up the project and move on, or, cut your losses? And I think Chris's advice is good, is just be as upfront and honest as possible, even though it's painful.
Got it. Yeah, there's a remodeler up in the Boston area who did do a seminar on this topic. Paul Eldrenkamp from a company called Big Meister. 4 lead carpenters running that company, and the bottom line is, from what we see, remodelers who have a specific dance card on what they can accomplish in a given year, they got to be careful about who they put in those slots and make sure that all of those jobs are profitable. And I think that's harder today in an up environment where there are so many leads coming through that you have to say no to a lot of people up front and before you even get started. So really good question there. So do you conceal the credit card charge within the project bid proposal? I believe that's to you, Liza, and to you, Chris. So are you kind of hiding financial information or cost information so that they don't feel like they're being somehow charged too much? Anybody want to venture that one?
I'll let Liza go first.
I see all different models. I see people, like if someone knows that a client wants to use a credit card, they'll just bake it into kind of an overall overall into just the profit margin to be able to absorb that. I think again, I see more of a mixed model. So if it's a very large project, then it'll be like, hey, I recommend you, pay for this % with your credit card, and here's the convenience fee, and the rest, with much lower fees going through, a bank transfer or wire transfer setup, because that's just kind of better for everyone. But I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what Chris says.
Well, we charge for design, and then we charge obviously for construction. So with design, sometimes we'll let them make the first payment by credit card, but we tell them that, if they continue to want to use the card, they're going to need to pay the 2 to 3% on top of whatever it is. They just want the miles or whatever it is they're going to do with it. So, and now with ACH, it's not really about convenience. I mean, there's even Zelle and all these other things. So it's really, people are getting used to paying from their phone.
Got it. Yeah, no, there's so much about communication and even transmitting payments.
Right. And that was
is
not only just COVID, it was also the failure of the mail system. I mean,
Yeah.
we forget it was only yesterday when the US mail was not performing, and we had checks lost for 2 or 3 weeks. So we just decided, we used to go to the house and pick up checks because that was, we were already there. So we just said, leave it on the mantle. Our project manager will get it. And that worked really well. But then when, we started using the mail, it was just didn't work. So unfortunately, the mail, nobody's going to go back to money in the mail anymore. I don't think, not unless they need they need some help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, Chris. That's an interesting issue, but a lot of it is gone. The payments have come online. They're really fast, and so many different ways to do it. As we're getting towards the top of the hour, we'll tee up one last question for everyone to answer, and I'll remind everybody that we're going to send out a link to the recording of this to all the hundreds of folks who registered for this webinar today. And it'll be getting out there, and it will be on the website for months to come. So you can always refer back to it. But when we think about that system of communication, there's so many platforms. Obviously, Houzz Pro has that platform, but the central place where a homeowner can go in and kind of see it in an instant, like, hey, when did I request this? And did anybody respond to me? And when did they respond? And what did they say? Not to be litigious, but really just to settle all these things and to keep that communication clear. So Liza, maybe you could start first on that, because it's so critically important. It's what people expect now in all relationships that involve these projects and other kinds of purchases. And then we'll go over to you, Chris, and you can tell us what you use and how you use it.
Yeah, no, it's become mission critical. I mean, we built Houzz Pro as a project management software system because there's still so many folks in the industry that are using, Google Sheets or pen and paper still, or just texting. And we're finding that it really is not only kind of from a proactive standpoint to be able to provide that dashboard, to have one central source of truth for communication, a better experience for clients, but just from an aggravation or a litigious front, having that record of decisions made, of everything that was communicated, of knowing who said what, really has become a mission critical part of making a project run smoothly and making sure that the client has a great experience and is going to give you that referral and write that great review online and to keep that business engine running.
How do you what platform, or maybe you could just describe, Chris,
I'll be
the process.
I'll be generic in the sense that CRM is very important, obviously, especially if you scale. I mean, if you're one guy with a yellow pad and a pencil, that probably works for you. But as soon as you have employees and employees in every department, design and construction, and then it gets more complicated. You've got historically you had your different softwares that didn't talk to each other. So you had your ACT and your that kind of stuff, getting your leads and keeping your marketing database there and doing your newsletters and sending out that kind of stuff. And then you had your estimating softwares and your design softwares, and nothing talked to each other. And you had to enter in a lot of data each time you used each different set of software. So, a CRM can definitely, smooth things out and give you a lot of economies of scale and make it more efficient for you. So that's very important. And you need to do your research, because there's some CRMs out there that are, like Salesforce. It's just huge and way too complicated for the average small firm that we have here. And then you have others that are here today and gone tomorrow. So you have to, and the software piece of it is not the biggest piece of it. It's the training and onboarding and all the legacy stuff that you have to move historically into your software. So there's a lot of complexity and a lot of thought that needs to go into it.
Yeah, and it's a great point. I mean, it's one of the reasons we built something end to end, because having multiple systems gets complicated, right? And having something that's difficult to use is complicated, and adoption is, right, one of the biggest thing that stops folks from using these tools is just getting everybody to use it. So great point.
Well, there's a lot more we could talk about for sure. But on behalf of Chris Landis from Landis Architects and Builders in Washington, D.C., and as well as Liza Hausman from HouzzPro.com and Houzz overall, thank you to both of them for being here today. And on behalf of Qualified Remodeler, Kitchen and Bath Design News, and our company, Solar Group, thank you all for being here. As I mentioned previously, the link to this webcast will go out tomorrow to both attendees and non-registrants, so you'll see it again. And please join us for the next 2 webcasts in this series, one in July and then again, one in November. So for now, that is all we have. Have a great day and good luck out there.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Chris.